Alejandro writes, "Hey Collider crew, my question is, with Ghostbusters coming out soon and the recent Fantastic Four movie being remade, and now with news that a new Goonies movie may be remade, why doesn't Hollywood focus on making original movies? I am getting so sick of movies being remade because I want to see something new and original. Kind of glad to hear that The Crow production has been halted. I know you guys welcome remakes, but at what point will it be enough? Thanks."
Well, I mean, this is a question that comes up so often, like every 3 months or so we'll address it. Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, because remember, the movie making business is a business. And when you can, and making any movie is a roll of the dice, it's a risk. And when you can get a leg up right off the bat, like, hey, you know what? People know the Ghostbusters name. They have an attachment to Ghostbusters. This gives us a big advantage from a start. We're starting on square 4 instead of square 1 to make it. That's one of the reasons we get a lot of these remakes and sequels and things like that, because the potential for making money is higher there because the audience sees it and knows it, recognizes it, and has an attachment to it. So that's the one thing. However, and I can never emphasize this enough, it is a complete misnomer to say there's no original films today. The fact of the matter is, there has never been a period in history when more original films have been produced than there are today. It's also a fact to say there's never been a period in history when more remakes and sequels have also been made, but that's because the overarching fact is there's never been a period in history where more feature films in general have been made. And as a result, there are more original films made today than any other time in Hollywood history. Part of the problem is you don't go see them. I mean, we hear people say all the time, oh, there's more original films. And then I will do this almost every time, like 3 or 4 times in the past couple of years. I'll run down, well, here's a list of all the movies that opened in the last 2 months. And like 80% of them will be original films, but none of you went to go see them. So we can say we want original films, but when they come out, the average film goer doesn't rush out to see them. And then we sit back and we complain, why aren't there more original films? Well, there are. They're there. Just look at the lineup. But it's like the fly on the wedding cake. You put a black fly on a white wedding cake, and you look at it and you say, what do you see? You say you see the fly, when really it's a giant white wedding cake. A lot of these movies are high profile, a Ghostbusters, a Goonies. So those are the ones we get the attention. But then when all these like unique original, Sicario coming out, The Walk is not a remake of any kind. The Martian is not a remake or a sequel. I mean, just look at that thing right there. Look over here. The Intern is not a remake or a sequel. Scorched Trial sequel. Hotel Transylvania 2 sequel. 2 out of the 6 films. 2 out of the 6 are on our boards. That's just right now. So we're not in a situation where Hollywood isn't making original films. They really, really are. Anyway, Schnepp, how do you see this whole situation?
I agree with you. I mean, the only things that piss me off is when I hear about Monopoly, the movie, or Pez, the movie. That's when I'm like, come on. And that's what you're talking about. There's a branding that people are like, hey, that's something that has already been associated in people's minds. Maybe it hasn't been made into a movie yet. I don't see why they're trying, but I get why they're trying. Sequels, it doesn't bother me. Reboots and remakes, they don't bother me because that happens all the time, and that's how it's always been since Hollywood films have been being made. And it's only we're more cognizant of it now because back in the 30s and 40s and 50s and even 60s, there was no such thing as the internet or VHS tapes or being able to rewatch a film. You would have one generation, they saw Miracle on 34th Street, and then 10, 15 years later, they'd remake that movie and release it again. And 15 years later, they'd remake that movie and release it again because there was not even television.
We're working on a remake right now.
We're doing, Miracle on 39th Street. It's going to be crazy. There's ghosts involved. Aunt May shows up. It's going to be nuts. Spicy Larry's in there, but only for 5 minutes.
Oh, he dropped out.
Oh, did he drop out?
He dropped out. He claimed scheduling conflicts.
Yeah, that's what they always say.
He's shooting Ghostbusters.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Ghostbusters 4. Yeah.
Christian.
I think that, and although I admire it, I think that this thing of there's too many reboots and there's no original material. I think it's kind of an activist position right now of film fans, and you hear it all the time. And I think what it is that, especially something like Ghostbusters, it's a beloved property, so you hear about it a lot. It's a big story, especially if you're a movie fan and you're following shows like ours and just movie news in general. The big stories are movies, the reboots, and because they've come from a beloved property. So those stories are like the front, or like the headlines. A movie like Sicario is there when you look for it, and you have to really search for it, but it's there. American Ultra, movie no one saw, original movie. there are tons of original movies. Like you said, there are movies that are not just reboots. You did what I wanted to do as far as like going through, look at all these. There's 2 sequels on the board and no remakes from what I see here. Remakes are going to happen. It's a part of it. The same way like comic book movies are a thing now. Now, I also agree with Schnepp here is that sometimes the studio is like, if they have nothing and they don't have a superhero franchise, they're reaching for stuff. So they go, oh, we need a Pez movie. We need this. We know people know Pez. Make a Pez movie. So there comes to be a reaching, but it then maybe look, Pirates of the Caribbean is another example that I use because when you hear about it, if we were doing the show back then, I'm sure you and I would have the conversation. They're making a movie off that
ride,
and they figured a way to do it.
Yeah.
Now there is a way to do these things to where you can be creative. There's a way to, but there are original ideas inside of that. Even Pirates of the Caribbean, the story was original idea. It was based off this ride, but it didn't have this full story of Jack Sparrow and everything else. It was an original idea. So there are, like I said, I just think it's a stance sometimes, an admirable stance. But maybe not warranted.
You just gave me a great idea. Pez, but it's from the future, and they're like robot dudes, and their heads open up and shoot rockets out of their neck.
I like it.
Now, I will say this though, for these movies like Monopoly and Pez, we recently talked about the Angry Birds trailer that dropped. And to my shock and surprise, I liked it. It was cute. And what that made me think about was back in the day, I used to play this first-person shooter called Unreal Tournament. It's still my all-time favorite first-person shooter game. I loved it. But it was the first-person shooter that I played that introduced me to the concept of skinning. You know, where you could take characters and they'd make the character just look like Homer Simpson. Or you can make the character look like Deadpool and it's running out, so it's skinning it. What the Angry Birds thing did to me, it makes me think of skinning. It's like, they did it with the Lego movie, basically. They had this cute idea for a movie with these cute characters, some cute lines, and then they put a Lego skin on it. And then incorporated some very unique Lego stuff to it as well. Right. And I think, you know what? If you come up with a neat idea with some cute characters, endearing stuff like that, but then just slap a Angry Birds skin on it, or slap a Pez skin on it, or a Monopoly skin on it, there might be potential there. But even though I'm saying that, I still think it's a stupid trend. But we'll see how it turns out. Anyway, Mark, how do you see this whole thing?
You know, me and my Tea Party friends were at Pebble Beach talking about this, and you guys will buy anything. That's why they keep doing it. I think the studio, it can feel like that too, is that the studios will push these movies, these big franchise tentpole movies, further out from their release date than you will get an indie film. But if you look for them, I promise you, they are there in droves. You just got to go find them.
And don't forget, sometimes sequels turn into original ideas. Commando 2 was Die Hard.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Or also, we like for every Monopoly movie that we might be getting, we'll get Clue, which was actually really fun, and a lot of people love that. And it's like, oh yeah, it's Colonel Mustard in the corner with a wrench, you know.
I don't think he was in the corner.
In
I don't
the
think you
corner.
could. That wasn't a place you could kill somebody in Clue. It was the corner. You had to. Had to be a full room.
That's where I kill everyone.
You
is in
didn't play the
corner.
game right.
Get over here. Hey, how come he's not in the corner? Oh, I'm dead.
I think it was Colonel Mustard in the garage. Nope, that's not.
Yeah.
That's
You
not on
also
the table.
peed in the houseplants.
I know.
So,
Hey, that's how I play. That's how I rock it.